Decree that we make, he honors. St. John chapter 6, starting at verse 16 in the New Living Translation. That evening, Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him. But as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. Verse 18. Soon a gale, which is a strong wind, swept down upon them, and the sea grew very rough. Sometimes it's going to get rough. They had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. They were terrified. Sometimes in a rough situation you become terrified. But he called to them, "Don't be afraid." I skipped a verse somehow. And they had rowed 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water to the boat. They were terrified. And he called out to them, "Don't be afraid. I am here." Last verse for our consideration on today. Then they were eager to let him in the boat, and immediately they arrived at their destination. Can you just turn to your neighbor and say, "Hey neighbor." Hey neighbor. My question today is, where is Jesus? Can you find somebody way across the room and say, "Hey neighbor"? Hey neighbor. No, that's somebody next to you. Can you find somebody way across the room and say, "Hey neighbor"? Hey neighbor. That's somebody like 2 seats away. I'm talking about way across the room. And say, "Hey neighbor." Prophet's topic is, where is Jesus? You can have your seats. Come on and clap your hands for the word of the Lord on today. Yes, Lord. There we go. St. John chapter 6:16 that we just read in your hearing is a very familiar passage of scripture. Some of us remember it from the other gospel writers, but the Lord brought me here to St. John to show us some very interesting things, because if we be honest, we're in a day and an age and we're wondering, where is Jesus? You know, I got some friends that are in some situations and I'm wondering, where is Jesus? I got some people and some family members, some loved ones in some circumstances, and I'm asking, where is Jesus? If we be honest on today, some of us are asking Jesus, when will it stop? When you come and answer and deliver? And we have this question burning on the inside of our souls, where is Jesus? The truth of the matter is, some of us were raised in the old school church and they told us, don't question God, don't ask God any questions. But the truth of the matter is, I have a question, whether I announce it or I don't, whether I say it or not. There is a moment in my life where I get into my room and I'm all alone and I ask the question, Jesus, where are you? And I want to suggest even on today, Kev, that's even a good question, because if we be honest on today, I can't see Jesus. And so it's hard to know where he's at when I can't see him. Y'all not talking to me. It's hard to pinpoint where an invisible spirit is in my life. And so I know you said that all things work together for the good, but there are times, even like in this text, where I cannot see Jesus right away. I'm in the midst of a storm. Anybody else in the midst of a storm? I'm in the midst of a storm, and the only thing that I'm wondering is not will I fail the test, not will I pass the test, but the truth of the matter is, the only thing that I'm wondering is, where is Jesus? If we even take a look at some current events that are happening in our world. There's a virus going around known as the coronavirus, and 2,100 people have already died because of this virus. This same virus has already infected 76,000 people, and we have to wonder, where is Jesus? We have children showing up missing every day on Facebook, and then when you turn on the news, we see that adults are missing. They're being abducted, taken away from their family, their friends, and their homes. And I must ask the question, where is Jesus? We have even if you watch Facebook this week, I got back on Thursday to make an announcement, and I looked and I noticed that there was a midget on the internet saying that he was being bullied, and people started sending him money, and he ran a scam. And I wondered, where is Jesus. And so point number one for your consideration from our text is that whenever Jesus is involved, there is something known as a wait. Whenever we deal with Jesus, there is a time now that we have to have a waiting period. The truth of the matter is God can do it whenever he wants, and there are times where I want him to do it sooner than he wants. But the truth of the matter is whenever we're dealing with God, there is something now known as a wait. There is a waiting period. And whenever we skip the waiting period, we as humans, we have the tendency of not being grateful for all that God has done. And so God now subjects us to a thing called waiting. You have to understand that though we're waiting for some things and waiting for God to do some things, God is not moved by time because he does not live on the inside of time. God sits on the outside of time, and every now and again he injects himself, those are called miracles, he injects himself into time. And so we see God saying, hey, I'm going to do it for you. I don't know what it is that he promised you, but he's saying, I'm going to do it for you, but you must now wait. Oh God, let's take a look at the text, because whenever we deal with God, we have to understand that he's telling us to wait. And when we wait, Ricky, there is a reason why he's having us wait. I'm going to work on through here in a moment. And it says, and our faith in James chapter 1 verse 3, it says, our faith is tested. It produces steadfastness, endurance, and patience. Y'all missed it. So when I'm waiting, it's just a wait. It's just a test of my faith. Oh God. So as I'm waiting, my faith is being tested. And as my faith is being tested, something is being produced on the inside of me. Y'all missed it. So let me come on around here one more time. When I am tested in the midst of my waiting, when my faith is tested on whether I'm going to stay with God or leave God, I'm being tested on whether I'm going to punch you or if I'm going to pray. Y'all not talking. I'm being tested in the midst of my life, and it's rare I'm being tested that God says the wait is producing something for you. Yeah. The only way that you gain patience is by waiting. Y'all missed it. The only way that you gain endurance is by waiting. The only way that you can say that you're steadfast is by waiting. And so we must also remember that God's ways are not our ways. Yeah, I gotta make sure you understand that, because when God tells us to wait, sometimes we don't understand it. Y'all talking to somebody who, when I said, God, I'm ready to start the church, he told me to wait. And I said, well, this would be the good time because she don't got a church and she don't got a church and I'll have this membership. But no, he said, no, I want you to wait. And I had to remember that his ways are not my ways and his thoughts are not my thoughts. I said, oh God, this morning, I said, now God, help me to understand that there is a difference between our ways. Your ways are different than my ways, and my thoughts are different than your thoughts. I said, God, help me to understand this. He says, you got to look at the text. He says, remember that God's ways are not always our ways, but watch it. He says, as far as the heavens, the sky is from the earth, are his ways from ours. Anybody ever read that before? Yeah, and so look at this real good. As far as the sky is from the earth, how far is the sky from the earth? Yeah. In order to understand how different my ways are from God's ways, I would have to use the example that he gave me in the Word. How far is the sky from the earth? I've been on earth all my life, and it looks like that the sky is right there. It looks like I can touch the sky, but the truth of the matter is, in the sky there's something called stars. And so I said, okay, I'm going to answer the question, how far is the sky from the earth, by finding out how far the closest star is to earth, okay? Y'all go with me. So now there is something called a star, and the closest star to earth is known as the sun. Anybody ever heard of the sun? Yeah, and so the sun is measured to be 91.968 million miles away from us. Y'all don't even understand where I'm about to go. The sun, the closest star to earth is 91.968 million miles away from us. And so when I understand how far the sun is from the earth, now I understand why I don't always understand God. Oh my goodness. Now I understand why sometimes God can do something and it does not make sense to me, because my thoughts and my ways are 91 million miles away. And so while I'm looking at a little situation, God has zoomed out and he says, I know how when you pass this test, it will affect everybody in your neighborhood. I understand when you do this for your family that it will create generational blessings. And so I understand now that I have to look at things through the lens of God's eyes. And so the wait is always good, because if we wait on the Lord, then he is now a part of, I'm going to get back to the text, our journey. If we begin to now wait on the Lord, what happens is now we say, God, you are a part of my journey. And if anybody is honest in this room, there are times where we were not allowing God to be a part of our journey. We went on our own. We went without anybody's permission. And so we were saying, God, why is this not working? Because we never allowed God to be a part of our journey. It's here in verse 17 that we learn. He says, but as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. Y'all missed it, so let me try it again. He says, but as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back. There are times that we look at the situation and we say, okay, well, Jesus ain't going to do it, so let me leave. And that's what they did here in verse 17. They moved without Jesus. Oh, God. How many people in this room can be honest and say, there was a time in my life that I moved without Jesus. There was a time in my life that Jesus was dragging his feet, and so I decided to go on my own. I decided to go without his permission. I decided to go without his blessing, and so I just kept going, and then I looked back and realized that Jesus wasn't on my boat. Jesus wasn't in my circle. Jesus was not anywhere to be found in the mess that I made. And so they got in their feelings because it was dark. Y'all missed it. But some of y'all get in your feelings when it gets dark. And so now you leave Jesus on the back burner. You leave Jesus on the side. And because it's dark now, you say, I got to do things my own way. Jesus never told you to create that Tinder profile, but since it looks like he's dragging his feet, you say, I got so much love to give. I got to create the Tinder profile. Jesus ain't never tell you to call the baby daddy, but since things don't seem like they're working the way that you desire, you say, okay, well, Jesus taking too long. Let me take it into my own hands. Jesus never told you to consult the psychic, but because you don't want to wait on the prophetic, you start to begin to consult the psychic. And so what begins to happen is you make a mess in the dark. And since it's dark, we begin to take things into our own hands, because we don't think that God really understands and sees what it is that we're going through. And when you leave Jesus, you will run into a storm. Here it is, unequipped. Point number 2 is we must begin now to learn to see Jesus. I'm still on topic. We're talking about where is Jesus. But before we find out where he is, we must begin to now learn to see him. Though I cannot see him with my physical eyes, I have to begin to now see him in the middle of my storm. Y'all missed it? I wish I had some talkers today. I have to begin to now see him in the middle of my storm. And so I have to realize that I'm in a storm. Watch it, but the storm hasn't taken me out. Okay, I'm in the middle of the storm. The winds are getting worse. The situation in your life is getting worse, but it's not even equipped to take you out. Somehow, I'm still going through, but I've got my mind intact. Y'all missed it. I'm still going through, but my health is intact. I'm still going through, but I'm not pulling out my hair. I didn't kill nobody. I didn't kill myself. I'm going through, but I'm learning to see God in the midst of my going through. And we use the term go through so much in church. I want to make sure we understand that we have to go, watch it, through, Tanisha. We have to go through. And so when we go through, we have to remember that we cannot avoid it. We cannot pray it away. We cannot Google it away. But there are some times that we have to literally go through whatever it is that we're facing. We have to go through it. I would love to avoid some of the things that have happened in my life, but the truth of the matter is God told me to go through it. And so I cannot stop here because I have to go through it. Now notice when it got rough. It got rough in the text because they decided to go without Jesus. But when it got rough in the text and the winds began to pick up and get worse, they never decided to turn around. Oh God, we don't ever give them enough credit. Yeah, they moved without Jesus, but they said we are not going to turn around around because of a storm. I wish I could talk to somebody's faith in here. You cannot turn around just because you're in the midst of a trial. You cannot turn around just because it's a little storm going on in your life. You must continue to go. You must continue to go through. And so notice that when it got rough, they did not turn around, but they continued to press in the midst of the storm. They continued to press in the midst of all that they were going through. And when they got a good ways in the storm, guess what happened? They saw Jesus. The text says that they got to 3 or 4 miles into their journey, continuing through the storm, and it was, watch this, in the storm they saw Jesus. Okay, y'all not hearing me on today. It was in the midst of the storm that they saw Jesus, and so some of us don't get to see Jesus because we keep opting out of our storm. Oh God, yeah. The storm is designed for us to begin to see Jesus. The storm is designed for us to get to know Jesus, but what we keep doing is saying, nope, I'm going to go a whole nother direction so I can avoid the storm. And I just told you that we must begin to now go through the storm, because as we're in the storm, we will begin to now see Jesus. If you don't see Jesus in your money, it's because you're not going through in your money. If you don't see Jesus in your health, it's because you're not deciding to go through. And we have to decide to go through until we see Jesus. It's not until I see Jesus that now I have the strength to continue in the storm. Oh, God, help me today. And so in verse 19, we see what's called the great discovery. Because of the visibility of the storm, they should not have been able to see Jesus. But in the midst of a storm, rain going everywhere, clouds everywhere, wind blowing, they were able to see that in their storm, Jesus was with them. They were able to begin to now see Jesus in their storm. And so whenever you encounter a storm, I want to dare you to stay in the storm, oh God, until you see Jesus. I dare you to stay in the storm until you see what Jesus is doing in your life. Hold up, let me pause prophetically right here. We see Jesus in the storm, right? We see Jesus in the storm. Talk back. We see Jesus in the storm, right? All right, but what do we see Jesus doing in the storm? I want to tell you, since we are a prophetic house and we have a prophet, that it's not enough just to see Jesus in the storm, but I have to begin to see what Jesus is doing in the storm. And so in our text in verse 19, we see Jesus in the storm, number 1, walking on water. Y'all missed it? But I feel like preaching. We're about to see Jesus walk on the impossible thing. The thing that should be bringing us down is the very thing that we're about to see Jesus walking on, okay? But we see Jesus walking on water, but Kwame, we have to begin to now look at the direction that Jesus was going in. The text said that Jesus was not walking away from them, but Jesus was walking toward them. So we see now Jesus walking on impossibility. He's walking on water, but then he's walking toward me in the storm. It's in the storm that God begins to now walk toward my direction, because even though I left without him, he's still willing to help me in it. Oh God, I see him walking, and he's not walking to avoid me. He's not walking in another direction, but he's walking toward me because he knows right where I'm at. Y'all missed it? But I'm going to preach a little harder. He knows right where I'm at, and I serve a God that says, yes, you're in a storm, but I'm on my way. I know you're in trouble, but I'm on my way. I know you're mad, but I'm on my way. And so we see Jesus, but then, Taja, we're able to identify what he's doing. He's walking toward us to let us know, yes, I know that you're in a storm. Yes, I know right where you are. The winds have not tricked me. The water has not caught me by surprise. The shadows couldn't even hide you. I know where you are. And that leads me now to point number 3, because after we see Jesus, we must listen to him. It's in the midst of the storm. I'm preaching already. It's in the midst of the storm that we now hear the voice of God speak. Oh God, yeah. You keep jumping out of your storm so you can't even see or hear God. But it's in the middle of the storm, Brianna, that God begins to speak now to the situation. Oh yeah. It's in the middle of the storm that God begins to give us now a word of comfort. He begins to give us a word of encouragement. It's in the storm that he begins to talk to us. Yeah, it's in the storm that he begins to talk to us. In the storm, he gives us comfort. In the storm, he gives us encouragement. In the storm, he gives us answers. It's in the storm that he even gives us, watch it, Denise, the command. The command here in the text is be not afraid, okay? New Living Translation, don't be afraid. It's in the storm. He's saying don't be afraid. It's in the midst of you not knowing how you're going to pay rent next month. Don't be afraid. You don't know if you're ever going to get married, but he says don't be afraid. Every man has always taken advantage of you, but don't be afraid. I don't know if I can trust another pastor, but don't be afraid. And so in the midst of the darkness of your storm and in the trouble of your life, God is saying don't be afraid. Now, God, that's easy for you to say. I'm done. That's easy for you to say because you're God. No, I ain't done like that. So God, it's easy for you to say. It's easy for you to say because you're God. It's easy for you to say because you know all. But you're telling me don't be afraid in the midst of the hell of my life. I can't even see my hand in front of my face. It's so dark. But you're telling me now don't be afraid. The only thing I literally can see in the midst of this test is you. And I want to suggest that that's the way God likes it. And so he begins to now speak to them in the boat. He says, don't be afraid. But see, Denise, the key to good preaching, Angel, is to begin to ask the text questions. He says, don't be afraid. But I asked the question, why? And here it is right here, and I'm done. The answer to the question of why I shouldn't be afraid in the midst of trouble, the answer to the question of where is Jesus in the midst of my life while people are dying of the coronavirus, I'm wondering where is Jesus? And the answer is here in our text. The answer is don't be afraid because I am here. Oh God, y'all missed it. He's wherever you are. He says, I am here. So if you're in the storm, I'm there with you. If you're in trouble, I'm there with you. If you're in the crack house, I'm there with you. If you're in the low place, I'm there with you. If you're depressed, I'm there with you. If you're mad, I'm there with you. Wherever you are, I am there. And so since I'm there, you don't have a reason to be afraid. Youthful Praise said it this way: you have no reason to fear. Why? Because I am, watch it here. Now I'm all the way done. Here it is. He says, I am here. Yeah, I got to read it, church. Y'all, I'm going to keep saying it to y'all. Catch it. Am here. Okay, y'all getting it? I, the Lord, am here. I am here. Now, when you understand the names of God, one of the names of God is I am. Right. So the I am is here. So here is a continual word. So he didn't say I am there, but he says wherever you are, I am here with you. And so I can stand in the midst of anything and have confidence because God just told me that I am here. And so in the lone office, I am here. In the sadness, I am here. I'm not afraid of anything because I can look at it and say, God is with me. Y'all missing it. He says, I am here. And so you better recognize that God is there with you and he's not leaving you. Yes, you tried to leave him, but he sticks closer to you in the midst of your sin. He sticks closer to you in the midst of your rejection. He sticks closer to you than a brother. He sticks closer to you than a sister. And so wherever you find yourself, I am. He is the I am. And so I'm done here. And so I close the Bible. He says, I am here. So watch this. And so if you're in sickness, then he is the I am that's there. He's the I am that is here. And so now or here is the only time in the presence. And so when we leave from this moment, I'm no longer here. But I love God so much because wherever your here is, he will decide to continue to be with you. And so I can't even lose God if I wanted to because he's already given me a promise that I am here. And so this week, no matter what I face, no matter what they say, I got a word that is greater than whatever you try to do. I am here. Oh God, yeah. I announce to every bill, I announce to every doctor, I announce to every situation, I announce to every landlord, I am is here. And so, the last verse, and then we got to praise God. But the last verse, once he announced that he was here, once they seen him in the storm, the last verse, verse 21, it says it like this: then they were eager to let him in the boat. Oh my God. It says, then they were eager to let him in the boat, and immediately they arrived at their destination. Let me read it one more time. Then they were eager to let him in their boat. The truth of the matter is, when they realized it was Jesus and they heard his voice, they were eager to now let him in. And some of us need to begin to let God into the midst of our situations, in the midst of our hearts, into the midst of our brokenness, into the midst of our disappointment. And when we let God in, he's going to make sure that we make it to our destination. You got to hit it harder than that, son. I don't know what you're doing today. So we have to begin to understand that it's in the midst of God speaking to us that we're making it now to our destination. So they arrived there without hurt. They arrived there without harm. They arrived there without danger. Why? Because God was with them. And for every praiser, I want you to know that today God is going to now help transport you to the place that he promised you. Once you let him in, somebody say immediately. Oh God, y'all missing it. Once I let him in, immediately. It should have took me longer, but I let him in, and immediately. I prophesy that some things are about to happen for this people and this house immediately. God is doing it because we know where he is. God is doing it because we know what he's saying. And immediately. I was healed, and immediately God brought me to destiny, and They were eager. In other words, if we get churchy, they were praising God because they were letting him in. Y'all missed it. We used to say when praises go up, blessings come down. But the truth of the matter is, he inhabits the praises of his people. So he did not get in the boat. He did not get in the boat until they decided to get excited. I'm making a conscious decision today, Ricky, to be excited because I can see God. I'm deciding to be excited because I can hear God. And when they got eager, he got in the boat with them. I dare you, if you believe God for immediate blessings and immediate turnaround, give him an immediate praise. Y'all don't